This is Dustin Mooney with TechX Cyber. This is the first video in an educational series on cybersecurity. And today I wanted to chat about where do you start? How do you begin a cybersecurity journey as a business leader, as a decision maker for your company? I've been in cybersecurity for over 15 years. I've had the opportunity to get in front of a lot of key decision makers and stakeholders. And one of the themes that I see the most is that there's a lot of confusion about how do you get started in a cybersecurity journey? What's your first step? So I want to talk about that today, as well as some steps that may preclude that particular one. So the most simple answer about where you start your cybersecurity journey is actually in your mind. You do this with the term called due diligence. Okay? Due diligence is a mental decision that you're going to do the reasonable thing. So when it comes to cybersecurity, you're going to make a decision that you will implement cybersecurity best practices into your business and integrate these functions into your business to protect your customers, to protect your systems, your data, and your employees. So this is a choice. Sometimes business leaders choose not to focus on cybersecurity. So their journey starts here. To begin how they're going to protect their company, they need to change their mind. So we start in the mind, we make a decision, we say, I'm going to do the right thing. For instance, I took in customer data. I'm going to do the right thing and protect that customer data. So it's a decision. And as we all know, saying that you're going to do something is a great first step. The meat and potatoes comes when you actually do it. It's when you show up and you start implementing. And that's our next point. So you have to act on your convictions. If your conviction says, I should protect customer data, there are a set of actions and implementations of cybersecurity best practices that are going to need to follow that decision. So we have to also prioritize how we're going to make those decisions. Which implementations will we do first? We have to implement them, document them, and continuously assess if the implementations that we've put in place are working. This is your practice of due care. So, what is the foundation and the backbone of due diligence and due care? Well, that word is risk. So, what we have to do before we can start fixing things is find out what's most important to me. What are the biggest problems that I'm facing? If something went wrong, what scenarios would be the most impactful to me? These are the questions we start asking ourselves when we start calculating risk. And one of the reasons why we do this is because we need to prioritize. We need to discern how we're going to divvy out our resources, our time, our money, and who and what we're going to give our attention to. To make smart decisions in that, we have to calculate risk. We have to prioritize what those risks are from highest to lowest, and then come up with a plan, how to address those risks, how to identify and remediate any vulnerabilities that we've identified, and which cybersecurity practices will best remediate those vulnerabilities and reduce our risk. So risk is the foundation of your cybersecurity journey. Without it, due diligence and due care fall apart. Another big aspect in starting a journey is understanding why trust is so important and actually what trust is. So trust is the belief that somebody or an entity will act as you expect them to act. If a customer gives you their sensitive information, their non-public information, or personally identifiable information, they are trusting you to be a steward of that information, to not share it with anybody that they have not authorized you to. For instance, a hacker. So there's a trust relationship between a company and the customers that are trusting that company to provide them a service. They would like to believe that that company will act with integrity and as expected. As a company grows, and it uses information systems, and it creates more data, and it takes in third-party data, the trust system must remain in place for the business to be successful. Business leaders need to act with integrity and in discernment, which will facilitate the trust in customers, employees, contractors, vendors, or partners, and they'll be acting as expected. The other big thing that happens as we focus on trust is that we build trust within the company. When we set a standard for cybersecurity as the approach for how we will use information systems in a business, trust in the employees, trust in the company, and trust in the leadership is established, and it's strong. And that's what we want to shoot for. Now, sometimes I also see one other major mistake happening here when a company is starting their cybersecurity journey. If a company sells widgets and they're not a set of cybersecurity professionals, they may struggle to determine what are our risks, what are the cybersecurity best practices. The problem that happens is that this responsibility of figuring that information out is assigned to the IT provider or managed service provider, either internal or external. There's a big problem with this because the goal of an IT provider is functionality, it's uptime, it's consistency. They would like to keep the business running. Now, if you delegate that responsibility to somebody where the goal is not risk, they may not know how to get there. They may not know which are the best cybersecurity best practices to implement. The goal of a cybersecurity professional is to identify risks and then figure out a plan of how to reduce those risks. So the two things that we're trying to achieve do overlap, but they show up in a very different flavor. I've also seen smaller businesses assign maybe a person with some IT knowledge, cybersecurity tasks. This is not the right person, unfortunately. We have to pick somebody dedicated to the job. We need to check and make sure that the tasks that we've assigned to people, the trust that we've put in the entity to address our cybersecurity, is doing it properly. We need to check. We need to ask. We need to see reports. If we don't follow up, that's blind trust. And blind trust also often gets degraded. The final thing to do is to open lines of communication internally for the company. Start conversations with your employees. These individuals are the people at the forefront of the internet representing your company. In most cases, in most scenarios, there's a high probability that if incidents are happening or cybersecurity problems are occurring, that they have insight into them. Create an email address where your employees can email a business leader or a decision maker about the things that they're worried about. Set up a hotline, have meetings, and have open communications about the importance of cybersecurity at the business, as well as offering the ability for individuals and employees to come and talk about the concerns that they have. So just to recap, cybersecurity decision-making in your journey starts in your mind when you decide that you're going to make it a priority. That's your due diligence. As you implement cybersecurity best practices, that's your due care. And as you assess risk and identify risk, that's your journey. Because risk will never be eliminated, it can only be reduced. Some of the ways that we can do this is by getting these tasks in the hands of the right people. Make sure that the person that you're assigning your cybersecurity responsibilities to understands what it takes to identify the likelihood of a cybersecurity attack and what those impacts may be on the company. And as you do this, we're building a web of trust between management, between employees, between customers and contractors and vendors. And as that trust relationship is integral to the business will grow, the customers will grow, and they will continue to trust the business and continue to show up as customers. Thanks a lot. Check out episode 2. We'll be chatting about risk.